Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Srishti and I'm the Business Process Manager at Millionlights. Millionlights is an education and technology organization. Provide industry-led education and industry-certified skills and vocational training. At Millionlights, we aim to bring the best curated content, curriculum, and certification via live lectures, offline viewing, TV programs, and faculty interactions using TV, web, and mobile. Today, we are presenting a live session on business analysis, which is soon getting launched on the Millionlights platform. Opportunity to introduce to you the world-renowned business analyst, Mr. Michael Boyle, the head of Procurro Solutions, live in session with us from Austria. Acting very often as the bridge between the business and IT, Michael has thrived in working for various global organizations, allowing for the opportunity to work with people on 5 continents. Michael heads Procurro Solutions, an organization focusing on business analysis, agile framework, for both medium and large-sized multinational organizations. Originally from Los Angeles, he has been living in Vienna since 1989 and brings over 30 years of experience as a manager, trainer, consultant, and practitioner, both regionally and globally. In addition to his duties with Procurro, he is the Vice President of the IoT Austria Association, which has clubs throughout the country, as well as having relationship with various touchpoints, both domestically. Just a little housekeeping, guys, before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat section on the right side of your YouTube screen. We will definitely bring them up during the presentation, and we will also have time for questions at the end. Business Analysis 101 course will be available on Millionlights very soon. Now, without further ado, we will turn to...
Okay, well then thank you very much for that, that introduction. Thank you very much all for joining today. I'm very excited about starting this course with Millionlights, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to describe what this course is all about today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the agenda. First of all, I'd like to talk about what this course is all about and take a snippet from one of the videos that we have within the course and talk about the business analysis maturity model. Now, obviously, as mentioned, we'll have time for questions and answers. And then lastly, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about other projects that I'm working on so that you have some visibility on that. I think we don't need to go into too much more detail with regards to myself. And I believe that we'll be passing on this information to anyone who participates in this webinar today. Okay, first of all, within this Business Analysis 101 course, we start off in describing what exactly a business analyst is. If we do not have the same definition, then obviously it could be a problem in making sure that we know exactly what we're talking about. After moving on from the definition of what a business analyst is, then we talk about the various competencies that is to be found within business analysis. And we talk about the moving from abilities, understanding what you can do well, to the competencies that required from a business analyst. Following that, we look at business analysis processes, understanding requirements, gathering the whole process of elicitation, the components that are required within business analysis, for example, a governance agreement, how we go ahead and perform the activities, etc., etc. We then move on to stakeholders and strategy. Stakeholder analysis is one of the most important parts of being a business analyst because a stakeholder is the one who gives you the requirements so that you can come up with the best solution. By definition, a stakeholder is anyone who is positively or negatively affected by your assignment. And so it's very important to know who these people are. And then lastly, we have a whole slew of different tools and techniques that we look at so that you can actually go ahead and perform the business analysis duties properly. So that would be the contents to be found within the course. And I think with that, if we can leave it open for questions.
Yes, Michael. So, there have been like a lot of people asking about the course. When is it starting, and what like just now you've shared like what all will be covered in the course. So we can start with the presentation, and I will share the questions once in between, and then we can discuss all the questions at the end if that suits us.
Okay, yeah, sure, not a problem. Then I'll go ahead and continue.
Great.
As I mentioned, within one of the videos, we have what's called a business analysis maturity model. And I thought long and hard about what this path actually looks like for those individuals who are interested in becoming business analysts. And especially trying to understand from somebody who's just starting, interested in the profession, doesn't really know how to go ahead and approach it. And so I put together this model, and I would be keen on your feedback. The step number one is higher education. Because of the analysis part, that being a major component of the exercise, that we need to be able to analyze various types of information that we're receiving, either as a simple document, coming up with requirements, looking at solutions. The analytical ability is very important, and my personal take is that that's something that's fostered through higher education. So that would be the first step that we would take within this model, is higher education. The second stop would be actually being able to master all of the duties tied to a business analyst. And of course, there are various frameworks where this is highlighted. The one I'm showing on the screen right now is tied to PMI.
Sorry to interrupt, Michael. I'm so sorry. Apologies. We cannot see your screen.
Oh, okay. Sorry, one second.
Could you share your screen, please?
Yes, of course. Yes, all right.
Great. So we could start again. Go through the
Okay, great. Thanks. As I mentioned, the first stop would be higher education, so that we have a better understanding of how we go ahead and perform analysis. And then the next stop would be concentrating on understanding all the other duties that are tied to business analysis. Certainly that would be the focus of this course. And I was mentioning, there are different frameworks where business analysis is spelled out. One is coming from PMI, the PMI PBA certification, or from IIBA, the CBAP certification. This course will be based upon something more general, because this is an introductory course. Moving forward, there are other courses that we have planned, Business Analysis 102 and Business Analysis 103, where the material will be much more in detail. This is more of a general course. Okay, let's go ahead and continue with this business analysis maturity model, this path. The next stop would be understanding what takes place within the organization. Within the organization that you work in, there are various departments, and they should all be working on similar goals or the same goal. So it's important to understand how these different departments work and how they fall into your assignments. And so the next step would be, after understanding what your business analysis duties are, to understand your environment. And that would be the first stop, understanding the different departments within your organization. Our next stop will be understanding what's taking place outside of your organization. And here I'm concentrating primarily on your customers or on your competitors. And as you can see on your screen right now, there are various exercises that we actually go ahead and concentrate on within the entire business analysis compendium. not necessarily within this Business Analysis 101 course, but rather certainly some of these will be focused in 103 primarily. And then lastly, what is the pinnacle of being a business analyst? And I like using this example of the T-shaped individual. Perhaps you might have heard of it. This is a concept that's been around for a long time. Going back to 1991, it was written about in the Independent of London, talking about the Renaissance man of computing. And in fact, it was taken up by IDEO, who is a design company, and Tim Brown, who also focuses on this T-shaped individual. We have a lecture within the Business Analysis 101 course on T-shape, but let me go ahead and give you a brief description. Somebody who has a broad knowledge throughout the entire organization and outside the organization. So even if you're not directly involved, you have a pretty good idea of what's going on. And then the second part is the functional skills, the deep part, where you are a specialist in whatever domain that that you consider yourself to be a proficient in. Theoretically, you could be a multitude moving through time. And for me, the ideal business analyst falls into this model. So that would be the contents to be found within the business analysis maturity model. And perhaps if we can go ahead and move on to any possible questions you might have.
Sure, great. So we have Shashank asking that, will this business analysis help us to start any new business that we wish to?
I would say the Business Analysis 101 course, it all depends on what your current knowledge level is. If you're trying to understand business and understand how you go ahead and move from your specialty, especially if you're involved in IT, to better understand how you interrelate to the business, the answer is clearly yes. Getting to putting together business models, understanding the competition, understanding feasibility studies, that will be coming later on in Business Analysis 102 and Business Analysis 103. So to answer the question, the entire compendium, yes, clearly. I think the Business Analysis 101, depending upon your knowledge, it will be very useful.
Great, thank you so much for answering that. We have another question where the learner wants to know that what exactly is the role of a business analyst? So if I become a business analyst, what would be my role?
It's a very good question, and in fact, we spend a lot of time in Business Analysis 101 talking precisely about that. So let me see if I can give you a brief answer, and here I would suggest to definitely enroll for the course because we go into these in detail. A business analysis is one of those titles that you might be performing BA duties, but you wouldn't necessarily have the title. So we talk about what those duties actually are. We talk about how that fits within the organization, either being a trusted advisor to upper management, going to concentration on a department level, working on projects. And so the interesting part about this job called business analysis, it means so many different things to different people, and it's a very large tent. And so here I would suggest you go ahead and attend the course where we spend a lot of time talking about precisely this subject.
Great. Thank you so much. We would take another question, which comes from Nabil Rashid. He wants to know that how a system analyst is different from a business analyst. So a system analyst is different from a business analyst.
I would say that a system analyst performs business analysis activities. Let me give you some example. A system analyst is dealing with an ecosystem of various systems that could either be technical or they can be organizational. And so the understanding what those systems are, understanding the interrelationship between all the components, and understanding what the business needs are, what is the business actually trying to achieve, and what kind of outcomes you should have from your system. All four of those components, for me, are clearly business analysis activities. So if you ask me, a systems analyst is performing a number of BA activities. The specialty would be, I'm going to make an assumption when we talk about systems analysts, we're talking about technical systems. So the specialty would having the knowledge of those technical systems.
Wow, that was a real great answer. It has, like, okay, so we'll move on. There are like a lot of questions coming up, Michael, so we'll just take another one. So
sure.
Tanvi wants to know that how do you manage frequently changing customer requirements while developing any system?
I think
I could repeat the question.
No, that's fine. I understood. That's great. The real key here is understanding what is the goal. How do the requirements fit to the goal? What means of elicitation do you have to actually achieve that? I have to be honest. I'm very much a proponent of agile methods, as was mentioned in the introduction, and so I would try to make sure that we keep the iteration small to understand what can be achieved now, and then if we have modifications, we learn through the entire process, then it's okay to actually go ahead and take changes. That makes the modifications of user requirements much easier. So to answer the question, I personally take an agile approach to make sure that can be managed properly and adapt to the customer changes moving forward.
Great. Michael, we could go ahead with the presentation, and then we'll take a couple of questions more.
Okay, sounds great. All right, I'd like to go ahead and talk a little bit about a few other things that I'm managing these days. One of the difficulties we have quite often is, especially organizations see what's taking place in IT, especially with Agile and Scrum, and they would love to take on this method, but don't know how. And so I came up with a model. It's called Agile for the Rest of Us, how we can actually go ahead and deploy Agile within a non-IT environment. That would be one. Agile for the rest of us. The second part I'd like to concentrate on, one of my specialties as mentioned in the introduction, is frugal innovation, which of course, as you know, in India is Jugad. For me, we are concentrating on overcoming scarcity and putting an end to waste. I'm in the process of putting together a frugal innovation framework, and welcome anybody who would like to go ahead and participate in any forum. Please go ahead and take a look at that URL that you see on your screen. I hope that you can find something that you like. And then lastly, I'd like to concentrate on a course that I went ahead and put together for LinkedIn Learning called Program Management. You please feel free to go ahead and check it out, take a look at that URL. For those of you who are interested in the realm of project management, and specifically program management is all about bringing benefits to the organization. So please feel free to go ahead and take a look at that. And if you like what you see, go ahead and click on the like button. Okay, that will be it for me. Any other questions we might have?
Yes. So one of our learner wants to know that how can you explain the user-centered design methodologies?
The user-centered design methodology concerns understanding the user experience, how they perceive what's taking place, what their real needs are. We talk about that in Business Analysis 103. It wouldn't necessarily be in this BA 101 course, but we talk about persona analysis. We talk about customer journey, and we talk about customer touch points to understand, so what's it actually like for the user or the customer? Can we go ahead and empathize with what the user's actually going through? Because we can only come up with proper solutions if we know what the experience is for the user. And so that would be the major focus of user-centered design.
Great. So Manish wants to know that what are some of the most important points a business analyst must take care of when preparing a business plan?
When putting together a business plan, that we clearly need to know, I'm making an assumption, we're talking about being an employee for an organization. We need to understand what and this is a video lecture that we have within Business Analysis 101 where I talk about these points in detail. We first need to start with the vision. So why are we here? And then we move on to the vision. What are we trying to achieve? Then concentrating on the strategy, how do we go ahead and make it happen? And then of course we have our objectives. How do we go ahead and measure that we were successful? Going back to the question of a business plan, the business plan has to be in alignment with all of that I just mentioned. In other words, it has to be matching the mission, what we're trying to achieve, the strategy, how we're trying to achieve it. And within the business plan, you should definitely use the objectives to be found coming from the strategy. So that would be step number one. Go ahead and make sure that you're in alignment with all of those components. Secondly, we need to make sure that the plan is realistic. How are we actually going ahead and trying to manage it? We need to make sure that the outcomes are clear and that they're measurable. And at the end, we need to make sure that where there's a justification. This would not necessarily be in the Business Analysis 101 course, but certainly in Business Analysis 103, I spend a lot of time talking about a business case. And a business case is a justification for your proposal. And we go through various components to be found within a business case. And I believe that without the justification, the plan doesn't really mean too much. And so there I would strongly suggest when we get to the point of Business Analysis 103, spending a lot of time on that. And I hope as an introduction, certainly BA 101, I talk a lot about vision, mission, strategy, and objectives. So I strongly suggest you go ahead and attend this course.
Great. So Suman, I think this question has been answered. Suman wants to know that what are the tools for business analysis?
Oh, there are a whole slew of them. And of course, in Business Analysis 101, we can only cover part of them. I think there was something like 12 videos that we have under tools and techniques, going from interviews, observation, benchmarking, brainstorming, looking at the glossary and data dictionary. As a basis, we talk about user stories as well. And then later on in Business Analysis 102 and 103, we spend more time going through tools and techniques. Throughout the entire series, we cover, then there's about 100 video lectures. So I would say that half of them, but we go through about 50 tools and techniques throughout the entire compendium.
Thank you, Michael. A learner wants to know that what steps are required to develop a product from an idea. It sounds like a great question. What steps are required to develop a product from an idea?
Okay, it all depends on what kind of product, and I would say we could even expand the question to product or service. The real first question is, what problem are we trying to solve, or which opportunity are we trying to exploit? So that you can actually go ahead and make sure that your solution, which would be the product or the service, are actually fulfilling certain needs. So first of all, understanding what's the problem we're trying to solve, the opportunity we're trying to exploit, and then we move on to understand, so who are our stakeholders? Who's the audience? Who are we actually whose problem are we trying to solve? Which opportunity are we trying to exploit? And understand what are their needs. Then getting back to the question of the user-centered development, that would be a great opportunity to make sure that you understand, so what are the pain points for this user or your customer? Does your product or service actually go ahead and fulfill the need? And then you've gone ahead and understood what the match is, who your customers are, and how their needs are being fulfilled from your product or service. And then the idea, and again, I'm taking very often an agile perspective. So you're much better off getting something out earlier to those customers to start the validation process and better understand. So this is what you thought you were accomplishing. Did you actually accomplish it? Did those users really feel that their needs were being addressed? If not, can you make adjustments and make sure that you come up with something that actually is viable to your user community, either users or customers? Hope that helped.
Yes, of course, I'm sure it did. There are like a lot of questions coming in. The users seem to be like very excited. So we'll just go on to the next question from Suman Kumar.
Sure.
He wants to know, is Six Sigma also a part of business analysis?
Six Sigma is a technique that can be used by a business analyst. In fact, very interesting. I don't talk about Six Sigma in Business Analysis 102, but I spend a lot of time on processes, where we look at process analysis, process modeling, process design. And the whole idea of Six Sigma is making sure that you reach a certain quality. I believe it's 99.995%, if I have it right. Please don't quote me on that. And so the real question is, one, understanding whether we're reaching the quality that's required. Very possibly the quality isn't required at that level, and then it's not necessary. I think the more interesting part is the continual process improvement, where I spend a lot of time in Business Analysis 102 talking about it. It's a little bit too detailed for Business Analysis 101, but I spend a lot of time in Business Analysis 102 talking about that subject.
Great, thank you so much. So another one from Robert. He wants to know, when we are talking about measure, whether it is value-based or volume-based.
First of all, I think it depends on the desired outcome, because if the metric is based on value, then we need to quantify it on that level. If it's based on some other means, then we would go ahead and choose it accordingly. So I think it really depends on what's the outcome that we're looking for. That would be the basis by which we establish the metric.
Great. We have a compliment from DVO Media from Mauritius. So they're saying that, hi, we are from Mauritius. It's a nice initiative. Keep it up.
Oh,
okay.
Thank you.
Right. So again, we have another question. How we can judge the measure?
Meaning that, how do we know that the measurement or the metric is
right,
is correct? Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I think that you need to go ahead and perform what I call reverse traceability once you come up with numbers. This is a concept that I talk about more in Business Analysis 102, but let me give you a description of what traceability is. It means that you're able to develop a path from what you are trying to achieve, going back to the problem statement, to the actual results. So if you have metrics and you're trying to find out whether the metrics are valid, then you should be able to perform bottom-up traceability to make sure that that you have validation earlier within your findings, to make sure that those numbers can be validated. In other words, so you have a number. Can you talk to your users? Do they feel that the problem's being solved, or that the opportunity is being exploited? Because if you can't, if the users don't feel their problem is being solved, then your metric has no value. So you need to build in mechanisms within your processes to make sure that there's a constant validation throughout your all of your business analysis processes, and that you're able to take the metrics and trace them up to the top and make sure that the users are actually being satisfied.
Great.
Hope that was okay.
Great.
Yep.
There is, yes, thank you so much, Michael. Another one, what is database transaction?
What is database transaction? To be honest, I think this isn't something that I necessarily cover in this course because that's not tied to business analysis. But let me go ahead and try to give you an answer regardless. A transaction taking place coming out of a database can take on various forms. Either communication within an interface, going from one database to another, where you're either making a call or conversely supplying information to another source. Could also be tied to user interface interaction, where you're performing some sort of query and fetching the data from a database. So it could take on different forms. But again, that's not my specialty. And within the business analysis compendium, we do not spend time talking about technical components, but rather the focus is more on business, in all honesty.
Right. Thank you so much for the description. So someone wants to know what are the qualities or skills required for a business to become a business analyst?
Whoa, that's the major focus of this course. So here I would suggest, to properly answer the question, that you go ahead and attend the course. But basically, I always looked at business analysts as being the bridge between the business and the various touch points in the organization. And certainly if I look at from my own career, I was that bridge between IT and the business, because business has difficulty sometimes telling you what they want, and IT has difficulties in asking. And so business analysts very often will be the person who will be between these two areas and acting as a go-between, a translator, fulfilling the needs of the various departments. That would be one. I think there's and we spend a lot of time in BA 101 talking about this, the various competencies. For example, communications is a key element. And one that I spend a lot of time performing and talking about today is facilitation. I think this is really a key for business analysts moving forward. I do a number of webinars on agile methodologies tied to various domains, and especially with regards to agile business analysis. The question is, okay, within an agile environment, what does a BA actually perform? Because there is no role of a business analyst within agile. The fact is that there's a lot of competencies to be found within business analysis in all of the activities taking place throughout the organization, and also within the agile processes. I think a product owner has a lot of competencies tied to business analysis. I think that before you actually start with the project, we need to go ahead and make sure that there's the justification. We talked about this earlier with the business case. That's a key area of business analysis. And then, of course, the business analyst is the subject matter expert. And so making sure that the user acceptance is taken care of properly, that's another key component of business analysis. One of many. Hope that helped.
Great. Yes, of course. Yes, we'll go to the next question. Can we assume that domain experts enhanced version is a BA?
I think that if we go back to the slide, in fact, I can even go back. Can you still see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Let me go back to the T-shaped individual, because I think this question goes straight to this area. You'll see that that domain competency is the deep part within the T-shaped. And so for me, a business analyst that doesn't only have that strong domain knowledge, but has a very broad knowledge of so many other different things. Where does this knowledge come from? Obviously, it very much is tied to experience. So that you've had the opportunity to work with different departments, different types of customers, Perhaps you've worked for a couple different organizations, very possibly. And so you have a very strong knowledge of the way things work in all these departments within an organization and how things work with different customers. So that means you're able to deploy your deep domain knowledge to your broad overall knowledge. And this is, for me, the key of a business analyst.
Great. So, someone wants to know that what are some of the most important points a business analyst must take care when preparing a business plan? I think this question has already been answered. So we'll go to the next one. So they want to know that do we require any SQL or Oracle knowledge for business analysis?
This would, I think the slide that we have up right now is quite appropriate, because business analysis can take on so many different forms. And we talk about this in the BA 101 course. You can have a financial business analyst. You could be an IT business analyst. You could be an operational business analyst. You could be a marketing business analyst. I know this from personal experience through training, that I run across all kinds of different BAs. So getting back to the question, whether any type of technical knowledge is required, if you're an IT business analyst, depending upon your job description, very possibly. But it really depends on what your focus is. I think something that would be very important for all our viewers here, looking at your career path. Very often you start in your domain, say for example in IT, but then you realize that you reach a dead end because there is no additional growth that can take place because you've mastered everything in your domain. So what do you do after that? Here I make a very strong case for business analysis, because the business analyst needs to understand the business. And at the end, why do we have IT? IT is here to serve the business. And so I ask you a question: what side do you think you have more chances of progressing in a career? On the IT side or on the business side? And I think your IT knowledge becomes quite valuable in moving into the business, but you need to understand the business. That's what this course is all about, understanding the business.
Great. So a lot of our viewers want to know that where is this course available? So I'll just tell them this course is available on www.millionlights.org very soon. And also it is a free course. Yes, it is free of cost. And you can access the content, give assignments, go through the content, videos and everything for free. And of course, if you want to get certified, you want a certification, it comes for a cost of rupees 3,200, rupees 3,200 Indian currency, of course. And now we can go ahead with the questions.
Okay, maybe if I can add something to that, I believe it's 49 US dollars.
Definitely.
And I'd like to make a case for this. Right, I like to make a case for the certification. You know, very often we go ahead and perform all kinds of learning, but if we don't have the opportunity to show what we've learned from a reputable organization, then you have no real proof of your learning. So I believe that the certification can be quite valuable for you, especially moving forward in your career path. Okay, that was it.
Great. So, yes. So of course, like all are asking, like, do we need any degree to become a business analyst, or any qualifications as such? Any pre-requirements are there? So
yeah, I talked about, unfortunately, we had some technical problems tied to the sharing the screen. I apologize again for that. I do believe that higher knowledge or if possible, a university degree is quite useful, simply because, and I'm going back to my experience, one of the things that I learned in going to university is the ability to understand various domains and perform analysis. And I think this is a real skill that we learn within university, and to be able to understand it, to document it, explain it. And here I think that higher education is quite useful. It's not a prerequisite, but I think it's quite useful.
Great. Thank you so much, Michael. So again, one question we have is, what exactly is the scope of operational business analysis in market?
The scope of operational business analysis, I think it kind of depends on the level of abstraction. In other words, the scope can be very broad, or it can be very specific. Let me give you some examples. If you're a business analyst involved in operations, it could be very much tied to the strategy of the organization. And so in other words, the business analyst will be acting as a trusted advisor. I spend a lot of time in Business Analysis 101 talking about this subject. You act as a trusted advisor to those people in upper management, or very possibly you might be responsible for solving specific issues within operations. So that means you have to understand the problem, you have to understand the current state, the future state, what the transformation looks like, who your stakeholders are, come up with elicitation. So that would be another level. Very possibly you might be a subject matter expert, and that would be your only dealings. And so the scope would be perhaps a little bit more condensed. So it really depends on where you are in the organization. It could be very broad, or it could be very specific. I talk a lot about all of these subjects in Business Analysis 101, by the way. Okay, that was it.
Great, Michael. So we have like a lot of compliments coming in already. Prachi says that it's a great webinar and all the best for the course. They are looking forward to it, to take it on, of course, www.millionlights.org. And okay. Question from Debt. He wants to know that how can we implement as a business analyst in HR? That's human resource, HR.
Oh, what would be the function of business analysis within human resources? Sure. Okay.
Yes.
First, let's go ahead and take a look what's actually taking place within human resources. Human resources is supposed to go ahead and understand what kind of personnel is required to meet your goals as an organization. So here I would say the business analyst acts as a conduit between that vision and mission, and mission, strategy, and objectives that I talked about earlier, understanding the skill set that's required to go ahead and reach all of those goals, and performs and take a look in the future and understanding, so what kind of skills will we need moving forward? I mean, this is a really hot subject, especially when we start looking at digitalization. So that would mean that the business analyst would go ahead and put together some sort of prognosis tied to what kind of skills will we need in the future. And then you take a look at your personnel and develop a career path, understand what are the abilities you need from your individuals, what are their current capabilities, what capabilities do they need to have moving forward, make sure that you have the right personnel. And so there would be a whole slew of activities tied to business analysis on that one.
Right. Okay. Great. Thank you so much, Michael. We have another question. Just
okay. Ready when you are.
Yes. One of our learners wants to know that I'm into airline industry. How is it going to work in airline industry if that person goes for business analysis? So is it going to be of any help to him?
Oh yes, in fact, I worked in that domain for a number of years, so I could definitely answer the question. So what would be the it would depend upon where within the airline industry you would be involved. If we're talking about understanding the requirements for applications, then it's quite clear. Understanding who are the users. So we would be talking about within an airline, we'd be talking about internally within the airline, we'd be talking about the suppliers. If you have any additional suppliers that you're working with, who are the end customers? You will have travel agencies that will be involved. You'll have the end user who's also involved. So you have to understand stakeholders. You have to understand what their needs are. You have to understand what your goals are as an organization and to what degree you're matching, you're fulfilling the goals through your analysis. So there are all kinds of different activities you can perform using business analysis within the airline sector.
Great. So we have we have a lot of messages. People are really thankful that we have organized this webinar and we could have a live session with Michael Boyle and, answer all the questions and get a deeper insight to business analysis and, take this. And they are looking forward to, of course, take this course on Millionlights. So great. So I think we have answered all the questions. Michael, would you like to add something?
No, apart from the fact that I appreciate you all taking your time to come to this webinar today. As you might pick up, I really enjoy the subject. I love talking about it, and I'm very appreciative of this opportunity to go ahead and share my knowledge with all of you. So thank you very much for attending, and I hope that you enjoy the Business Analysis 101 course. And certainly when you're in the middle of the course, don't hesitate to go ahead and reach out to me. Maybe something else that I can go ahead and mention. Sorry, hope you have your seatbelts on. It can go to the top. Let me go back to my description. Please feel free to go ahead and reach out to me. On LinkedIn, you see the address down at the bottom. Here are some of the other URLs that I have. Description. Love to hear from you. And again, thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Michael, for a great webinar. I'm sure our viewers have had a great learning experience. Guys, do not forget to connect with Millionlights on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter, and keep learning and getting certified at www.millionlights.org. And as you already know, Business Analysis 101 by Michael Boyle will be available very soon only on Millionlights platform. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you all.